Good evening, everyone, and welcome back to tonight's bedtime story. Tonight, we're going to continue on with even more tales to give you Goosebumps by R.L. Stine, special edition number 3, with 10 spooky stories inside. Tonight, we're going to continue on with the third story in the book, Don't Wake Mummy.
Hey there, it's me, Mama Tori. I'm just popping in here to touch base for just a moment before the story. I noticed many viewers aren't subscribed despite the growing traffic. I'm hoping to reach 500 subscribers by the end of the year, and it would mean a lot to me if you could subscribe as well. Liking and leaving a comment about your thoughts on the story help as well, and of course, make sure to enable your notifications so that you can get a regular bedtime story from me every night. I also sponsor myself, so if you'd like to support my channel and small business, check out my products on Etsy, my books on Amazon, or even consider joining my Patreon. I really appreciate all my viewers. Thank you so much for tuning in. Now, let's get back to the story.
The day the delivery man brought the mummy case to our house, I tried not to act scared. I knew my older sister Kim would tease me forever if she knew how I felt. "Ooh, a coffin," Kim said. "Are you scared, Jeff?" Kim thinks that just because she's 13 and I'm only 11, that I'm some kind of scaredy cat. She's always jumping out at me and trying to spook me. That's Kim's only hobby, teasing me and telling me that I'm a wimp. Dad is the curator at the town museum, so I've seen a lot of mummy cases. At the museum, this was the first one delivered to our house. It was all a big mistake, but Mom had the men carry it into the basement. She warned us not to go near it. And then the men left. Kim and I stood at the top of the stairs looking down into the basement. "I've heard about these mummies," Kim said, narrowing her eyes. "They wake up at night and search for prey." "I don't believe you," I said. "No, really," she insisted. "Mummies are jealous of living people, so they creep around after dark and steal the life from people." "Well, that mummy isn't stealing anyone's life. That box is chained up tight." "You know, Jeff, the worst thing about you is that you're such a wimp," Kim declared. "I am not," I protested. "If you're not a coward, then why don't you go down there and check out the mummy?" she demanded. "No way," I told her. "Are you crazy? You heard what Mom said." "Why don't you go down there and touch the box? Touch it one time." "I bet you're too scared to even do that," she said. "Fine," I said. "I'll do it." I regretted it even before the words finished coming out of my mouth. The light switch was broken in the basement. It was so dark down there, it even smelled dark, like clay. I walked down the stairs slowly. The box sat in the middle of the room. Everything else was covered in a layer of dust. But that box was spotless. The lid was so glossy it seemed to glow. Step by step, I drew closer to the coffin. The only sound I could hear was the beating of my heart. The air felt cold and moist. I rubbed my chilly, sticky palms together, working up my courage. "You can do it," I told myself. "There's nothing to be afraid of." I reached out my hand to touch the shiny black box, and the lid moved. The chains clanked. My heartbeat stopped for a minute. I couldn't help it, but I screamed. Then I turned and hurtled up the stairs without even looking back. The basement door was shut. Kim had closed it right behind me. I threw my body against it and burst into the kitchen. Kim sat at the dinner table, laughing at me. "The mummy is alive!" I shouted. "The chains rattled! The lid moved!" She roared with laughter. "You're such a jerk!" She strode over to the basement door, threw it open, and peered down at the box. "There's nothing to see," she announced. She was right. The lid was closed. The chains were in place. My imagination had tricked me again. Or had it? I had a hard time getting to sleep that night. No matter how I twisted my body, I couldn't get comfortable. Why couldn't I even get to sleep? I looked around my room. Everything was in its place. My books stood up straight on the big shelf. My computer sat at my desk, casting a shadow over a pile of notebooks. I had thrown my clothes on the floor, and they were crumpled together near the closet door. "Go to sleep," I told myself. "Everything is fine." But then I heard a thump. I sat up in bed. It sounded like someone dropped the phone book on the floor. I waited. I listened. Thump. Again? What could it be? Thump. There was a rhythm to the sound, one after another, sort of like footsteps. Each heavy sound was a footstep. Thump. And the steps were coming closer. Then I heard an eerie clanking. I strained to hear it. Thump. Clank. My heart raced. It was a chain. Thump. Clink. I gasped. The mummy! Searching for a victim! Searching for me! I screamed for the second time that day, and I heard someone running. My door swung open. The mummy! It had long tangled robes and wild frizzy hair. I screamed again and dove under the covers. Shh! A soft voice said. Honey, everything's fine. I'm here now. Huh? Mom? Wearing her terry cloth robe? She sat down on the edge of the bed and rubbed my neck. Did you have a nightmare? She asked me. No, I exclaimed. The mummy's out. I heard it coming for me, coming up the stairs. You had a bad dream, that's all. Mom bent over and kissed me on the top of my head. She smelled like a cinnamon and soap. I listened to her footsteps padding off down the hall. The soft sound her slippers made on the floor was nothing like the heavy footsteps I had heard before. I wanted to believe her, but I knew what I had heard. The mummy was out, and it would be coming for me again. The next day I biked to the library to try to find out how to protect myself from mummies. Would you believe that the only books that they had on mummies were scary novels and art history books? Not one practical how-to book? As I pushed my bike through town, I noticed a new shop on Main Street. The sign read Sam Bones Mystical Merchandise, and the window a tapestry was laid out and all sorts of crystals spread on it. Through the glass I could see a guy sitting up on a counter, leafing through a big book. He had long, bushy hair and a beard. Maybe he could help me. No one else was taking me seriously. What else did I have to lose? I locked my bike up on the no parking sign, then I pushed open the door to Sam Bones Mystical Merchandise, and a tiny set of chimes hanged on the door rang out. Good afternoon, sir, the man said, hopping off the counter and closing his book. How can I be of service? Are you Sam Bone? I asked him. The one and only, he said, doing a corny little bow. I'm looking for some information on mummies, I said hesitantly. Is this for some kind of school project? He asked me. Or are you planning a trip to Egypt, perhaps? No, you see. My dad's the curator at the Museum of Natural History here in town. We had a mummy delivered to our house by mistake. The whole story kind of just poured out of me. When I finished, Sam Bone began pacing up and down the crowded aisles of the store. Every so often he would grab a book off the shelf and rip through it, searching for something, or he would rummage through a box full of oils or candles or crystals. Of course, he shouted suddenly. I've got it! He disappeared into a back room for a moment. When he returned, he was grinning from ear to ear. He held a closed fist in front of my face and then opened his fingers one by one. In his palm lay a small purple sack with pictures of gold eyes sewn all over it. Sam opened the neck of the pouch and poured a tiny bit of blue powder into his hand. Mummy dust! He exclaimed. This is an ancient mix of minerals. It is said that the Egyptians would scatter this dust around the entrances to the tombs to keep the spirits from crossing into the world of the living. One puff of this dust, and the mummy will lose its power. Then he blew the dust right in my face, and I coughed. The dust smelled bitter and old. I'll take it, I shouted. How much does it cost? I believe mummy dust costs $20. Aren't you scared to be in the kitchen, Jeff? Kim teased me during dinner. After all, the basement door is right over there. She gestured over her shoulder. Doesn't it bother you that down in that box there's a dead body all wrapped up? She rose from her chair and started staggering around the kitchen like a mummy. He's waiting for the night to fall so that he can sneak up to your room and... Shut up, I cried. What is her problem anyways? That's enough, Dad groaned. Kim, you're not being funny. Stop scaring Jeff. While our parents were doing the dishes, I scooped out the ice cream. Kim leaned over to the table and whispered, If you think you're so cool, wait until tonight. What are you talking about? I demanded. You know, she teased. The mummy. I heard it last night too, you know, and I also heard you screaming like a baby. So I didn't imagine the sounds. Kim had heard them too. I'm not worried, I replied. I'm protected. I'm not scared at all. Yeah, right, Kim said. We'll see about that. After everyone had gone to bed, I lay awake. It was chilly in my room. A storm picked up outside, and the glass in the windows began to shudder as the sharp wind started picking up. I clutched my pillow, waiting. I gripped the pouch of mummy dust in my right hand. The feel of the small sack in my palm reassured me. Rain drummed at the window, and the room filled with white light. Thunder crashed outside, and then I heard it. Thump. From the room below me, from the kitchen. The sound terrified me. Thump, clank. I heard a low, wailing moan. Was it the wind or the mummy? Thump. The mummy was coming for me. but I wasn't going to wait for it. I jumped from my bed and threw open my bedroom door. I couldn't stop shaking, but I made myself step out into the upstairs hall. Crash! Lightning lit up the hallway for a second. No mummy in sight. Thump, clank! I grabbed the banister and jumped down the stairs 2 at a time. My feet felt all prickly as they hit the polished wooden floor of the front hall. I turned the corner toward the kitchen. Thump! Something blocked my way. The mummy! Too scared to scream, my throat jammed up. There it stood in the shadow of the hall, the mummy hunched over, his face wrapped in strips of cloth. Its skinny arms hung limply at its sides. The arms were weighed down by hands that were huge, gnarled claws wrapped in layers and layers of cloth. The chains from the case were draped over its shoulders. They clanked as the mummy lurched up to me. Through the gauze over its head, I saw the mummy's evil grin. Quick! I tore my eyes away from the ancient monster. I fumbled with the powder, struggled to get the pouch open. It was tied in a knot. My fingers shook too hard to open it. The mummy moaned a low, ugly moan and reached its arms out to me. Huge, hideous claws, reaching. Finally, the knot gave way. I turned over the pouch to empty the dust into my palm. Grunting, the mummy swung both arms at me. I lifted my hands to guard my face. The rotting cloth brushed against my skin and I stumbled back. I hit the floor hard. My teeth clashed together. The dust! I dropped it! The pouch fell on the floor and spilled the dust all over. I scrambled to scratch up a handful. The mummy growled. Lightning flashed, and the ancient mummy flickered in the jagged white light. Again I saw its evil, leering grin. "Who's there?" boomed my mother's voice from the top of the stairs. The mummy stepped away from me. The hall light flashed on. To my shock, the mummy turned around and ran. I couldn't believe it. Mom had saved me! The mummy staggered to the basement door, and it disappeared into the basement. I slammed the door behind it. Then I grabbed a chair and tried to wedge it under the handle, the way they do it in the movies. Mom rushed into the kitchen, tying the sash to her robe. Dad stumbled in behind her and fumbled with his glasses. "What on earth is going on down here, Jeff?" she demanded. "Mom! The mummy! It's alive!" I gasped. "It was coming to get me, I swear! It's trapped in the basement right now!" "This has gone far enough," said my mother. "Larry, for once and for all, tell your son that mummies are dead and don't stumble around at night." "Well, actually, there's something I didn't tell you," my dad replied, rubbing his chin. "You see, there's a rumor that this mummy really is alive. I thought it was a joke." "Huh?" Mom and I both cried. Dad explained. "This mummy was given to us by another museum. They didn't want it anymore because the night guard said the mummy rose after dark to wander the halls. But the curator promised there would be no problem, as long as nobody took the chains off the box. The mummy can't come alive unless someone takes the chains off." "Jeff, did you take the chains off the box?" Mom demanded anxiously. No, I didn't," I exclaimed. "Of course not." Dad jumped up as if stung by a hornet. "We've got to lock that thing in," he cried. We searched the drawers until we had found a heavy padlock. Then he locked the basement door with a loud snap. "I'm so sorry," Dad said, hugging Mom. "I can't believe I put my family in danger. I never thought that the rumors might be true." "I'm sorry I didn't believe you, Jeff," Mom said, turning to me. They tucked me in upstairs. With the mummy safely locked up, I quickly fell asleep. Wow, it's really dark down here. Dad should fix the light. I can hardly see my way down the stairs. This basement is creepy. I can't wait until Jeff and my folks go to bed so I can get out of here and go upstairs to sleep. Oh man, I almost got caught. But it was worth it, just to go look on my brother's face when I reached out to grab him. He almost fainted, the little wimp. Kim, you are so mean. But he asked for it. He really does. Okay, sounds as if they're gone. I'll sneak back upstairs. Oh no, the door is stuck. Really hard. It won't open. Mom? Dad? Hello? Can you hear me? It's me, Kim. I'm locked in the basement. No, the wind is so loud. The storm is making too much noise. I can't believe this. Dad? Mom? Jeff? They can't hear me. This is awful. I'm stuck down here for the night. Well, I guess these old sheets will keep me warm. I can even wrap the gauze back around my face the way I had before. Of course, this chain is completely useless. Maybe it wasn't such a good idea to take the chain off the mummy case. But mummies have to have chains. Everybody knows that. Good. Some lightning from outside. I can see where to sleep. Is that our old couch over there? Whoa, wait a minute. The lid of the coffin is off. I didn't move the lid when I took the chains. How did this happen? Who opened the mummy case? Thump, thump, thump. The end.
Once again, thank you so much for sticking with me until the end of tonight's story. If you haven't done so already, Please go ahead and press subscribe and enable the notifications on the bell icon so that you can tune in tomorrow for another spooky bedtime story. And go ahead and leave a comment below about your favorite part of the story as well. And if you like what I have going on here on my channel, I also invite you to check out my products online on my Etsy store, my books on Amazon, or even consider looking at my Patreon to keep up to date with my next project. This is a great way of helping out my channel and staying tuned for my next release. Thank you so much, everybody, and have wonderful nightmares. Good night.